Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning. There is one of the major parts of Judaism is the idea of prayer, tefillah. And it's something which we do quite often, right? We do it every day, and not just every day, 3 times a day. At least for a man, there's the idea that just 3 times a day. A woman is generally to do it 2 times a day. Well, I could also do it 3 times a day, but a woman's supposed to do it 2 times a day. I might have thought 1, really 2. I had a question. I grew up observant. I grew up Orthodox, even though I hide that well for some of you. I grew up Orthodox, and for me, it was troubling me once, the idea of praying 3 times a day. It tremendously disturbed me for a lot of reasons. Yeah, but one of the main things that bothered me is the fact that we say the same thing every day, 3 times a day. In other words, if you want to spice it up a little bit, you know what I'm saying, like change it up or whatever, instead of okay, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, throwing in a little okay, David, you know what I'm saying, just switch it a little, just a little different. But every day, the same thing, every day, 3 times, and maybe even you want to say once a day, I get it, but 3 times, why do we do that? Why do we say we have Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv, right? The morning, afternoon, and evening service. 3 times a day, we have what's called the Shmona Esrei. Shmona Esrei, for those unfamiliar, please speak up. I don't know everybody's backgrounds here. That is, many people call it the Amidah, right? Amidah. For those who've ever walked into a synagogue during a prayer service, right? You've worked into a shul during tefillah, you've seen, let's say, when people are very quiet and standing still and doing their thing, like we've discussed many times, the men like this and the women like that, right? So the different things that they do. So why are we doing it every day, 3 times a day? So I asked my rabbi this. I said, this is it hurts me, it bothers me, it really bothers me. So he shared with me a couple of ideas, which were quite helpful. One of them is just is a perspective, in other words, of how to be able to take and be able to handle it. In other words, how can I handle doing it 3 times a day? I just did it a couple hours ago. I'm going to do it again and again and again. So he gave an interesting perspective about the concept of living in the moment, that, like anything in life, that if a person wants to be able to really maximize anything you're doing, you have to be living in that moment, right? You have to be living in the present. You have to be living right now. The past is the past, the future is the future, the present is a present, and that's why it's called a present. And the idea is what? To be living in that present and recognize, be aware, live with awareness of what you're doing. So if I go and I say, oh, I already did this, it's like if I go to my spouse and I say, in the morning, I love you, and then in the afternoon, I love you, and then, okay, I told you this morning already, right? So that doesn't exactly work like that, but how do I get the most out of it is I stop for a moment to actually focus, and then I say, oh, by the way, I once heard a rabbi giving classes on Shalom Bayit. He said that this guy's having trouble with his wife. It finally came out. What had happened is when they first got married, he said to her, I just want you to know I love you. And until further notice, that's what you should know, right? I don't have to actually tell you all the time. Right? That doesn't exactly work, you understand? So, and if you don't get it, then I can't explain it to you. But the point, if you get it, you need me to tell you. So nobody really needs to hear it. But what we find is that what? When it comes down to the idea of tefillah, live in the moment. In other words, right now, what am I doing? I'm speaking with God. And really, as I once, recently, one of my good friends told me an interesting idea from a Rav here in the old stadium, Rav Neventhal, that what you're supposed to be picturing when you're praying is you're really supposed to be picturing as if your neshama, your soul, is actually detached from your body, and it's going on up, and it's in front of the Kisei HaKavod. You're standing in front of God. And then you go ahead and now you're basically pleading for your life and for health and for prosperity and you know how quick a person's wealth can just go? Some people do know, right? It could just go, right? You get the idea? It could just come and go. You think that you got it all there for your good, understand? Person has something, it could be gone. There was a rabbi, his name is the Beis HaLevi. The Beis HaLevi said to one of it, where did I hear this? I just heard this on the radio. He said the following, that there was a rabbi named Soloveitchik, right? And there was someone by his house saying, I don't believe all the miracles that happened like in Egypt. We're living down the portion of the week. Come on, all these miracles really happened? He's like, what, they just made things just like appear out of nowhere and whatever? And he said, what do you mean? Says the rabbi, what, you want to see a miracle? I could show you a miracle. He's like, what do you mean? He goes, I could show you a miracle. You see this table right here? If you take out 4 $100 bills and you put them on the corners of the table, I can right now show you. Put 4 $100 bills on the corner of the table. There's a plate in the middle. I'll say 5 words. All those $100 bills will go into the middle of the table. The guy's like, baloney. He says, are you in or not? He says, yeah, I'm in. He goes, there's only one condition. He said, what? He said, if it works, you have to give the money to charity. The guy's like, But he can't be showing up now, so he's like, fine, deal. So he says, all right, the rich man takes out, puts $100 here, $100 here, $100 here, $100 here. And then the Beis HaLevi, he says the following, 5 words. He says, Chaim, sim hakesef betoch ha'kara. Says to his son, Chaim, put the money in the plate. And he goes and he takes the 4, puts it in the plate. And the guy goes, that's not fair. He goes, why not? He goes, that wasn't a miracle. He goes, to get you to give charity, that's a miracle, right? You understand? Idea is that you find, okay, I don't know why I just told you that story, but the point is, is that to live with the awareness and the recognition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us at every moment, and so live in the moment. So what I'm saying is that to really be looking as the fact that our body, we ask for money, we ask for things, we go in front of God, and we could lose our money in a second, like this guy did, in a second. And everyone knows all these Ponzi schemes that are going on. Craziness, right? Craziness. With the Madoff whole thing of a couple of years ago. But people went from being multimillionaires to being paupers overnight. Yeah? Understand? These things it comes and it goes. It comes and it goes, right? So therefore we go and we pray for things. Health comes and goes. A person can be here one moment, and it's a really crazy thing when you think about it. I remember when one of my aunt passed away. And when my aunt passed away, I remember thinking like, it's really strange to think about that. Like, she's not alive anymore. Like, she was, and now she isn't. He's saying, how quick is it? Bam, next. You understand? It's over. So we go and we pray and we ask for things, right? And we go and we talk. I mean, the mentality has to be that it's real. It has to be that it's real. But why every day, 3 times a day? So number one, in order to be able to connect with it, is you have to actually go ahead and be in the present and be paying attention. One of the biggest things in a person, especially someone who grew up secular and starts to pray, I find less questions than those who grew up observant and pray. What I mean by that is, those who grew up observant praying, they're like, oh, I don't connect to it, it's not whatever. And my response is simple to that. I was like, of course you don't connect to it. You have no idea what the words mean. So what do you expect? You're going to connect to it? You have no clue what they mean. And then you have the yeshivish ones that try to show me they do know, and then we embarrass them and show they don't know. If you want, you can step up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We have no idea what we're saying. And then you wonder, like, I don't get why I don't connect. Of course you don't connect. You don't even know what the word. You might as well be getting up and saying, just do that. Right? You'll get more out of Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu. It doesn't mean anything to you, and that at least is a rhythm, right? Understand? So feel the rhythm, right? It's what Bob said at the time. Right, the bottom, why you get to the thing, understand what you're saying. That's number one. Okay. But there's another thing. That was for me, and understanding being able to connect to it, right? Connect to it is that be in the present, understand what you're saying, recognize, learn about it. Okay. But why do we do it 3 times a day? I'll be in the present once a day. Why do I got to be in the present 3 times a day? I don't have a suggestion. Why do we pray 3 times a day? Say the same thing. Yeah.
Well, I could share my experience with prayer, not formal prayer, but if I don't pray regularly, like at least 3 times a day, I'm lost.
Lost in?
I make bad choices, and I'm like lost in my connection with God.
What does that mean? What is the manifestation of your loss? In other words, let's say you are lost. Now what? So what? How does it change your life?
I'm not of service. I'm self-centered. I'm angry. Like my emotional status is off the hook.
So when you're praying and you're in a state of what you call connection with God, the ramification of that is that you are not self-centered and you are not angry. Less. Okay.
Less fear-based. I feel more related to the people around me. I'm inspired for community service if the opportunity prevents it.
What is it that, if I may ask, you don't have to answer this and you say pass, but what is it about praying that now makes you less self-centered? And
I become God-conscious instead of self.
See, you threw out an important thing there. You said, at least in my own prayers. In other words, you're not talking about the words that we say in the Shemona Esrei. You're talking about your own words. Mm-hmm. And you're essentially, if I don't want to take this away from you, if you're doing it great, if it helps you, but it sounds to me more like therapy than prayer. In other words, you're more like saying, God, I need to think about not being self-centered, and I have to be more conscious about the people around me.
That's not what my prayers sound like at all, actually, but okay.
Okay, so what would they sound like? Give me an example.
More like, God, please help me. God, show me the way. Like, take my will. I want to do your will. God, please make me a vehicle of your service.
So what if you didn't do that? What if you did what I said? What if you said, if you said,
I don't understand Hebrew, so.
Fine, you know, I'm asking you, what if you said, kapuchkni, please help me, right? In other words, why?
There's no meaning.
Why, and what's the meaning in God?
Well, we're a monotheistic community, so it's like a tremendous power greater than myself.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, here. I'm not coming to God forbid. I want to hear. I want to understand it. So listen to the following. Why is it that we need to be able to be involved with this? And if I may take what you're saying and perhaps up the ante, and maybe not. That depends on what you do. Listen to the following. Okay, if I would ask you the following question. Some of you we may have done this. It'll be a review, but you need to hear it. That's a way of saying that I don't care if you've heard it. Okay, so it goes like this. Yeah, this is what? We're not playing games here. What is this?
A marker.
A marker, right? I don't know. Maybe it's an elephant. No, this is a marker. Yeah, it's a marker. Now, does it exist? Do any of us exist? Does it exist?
Yeah.
Is this a marker? Okay, now. Right now, when I go ahead and I put the marker now in my pocket, okay, now if I take the marker, okay, and I go ahead now and I want to put the marker in my pocket. So now, does the marker exist? Yeah. Right, well, it's not in my pocket, it's in my hand, but I'm saying, let's say it was in my pocket, right? So does the marker exist now? Yeah, so now, just because I don't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, why is that so in reference to a marker, perhaps, is because it doesn't really make a difference. If the marker's here, the marker's not there, its existence doesn't really affect your life. I mean, you might want a marker and write something, but at the end of the day, if there's a marker, there's not a marker, there is, there isn't, that's it. Okay, now, does God exist?
Yes. Absolutely.
No.
So, what?
No.
Are you trying to be funny, or are you making...
No, just, it can't exist physically.
Huh?
Really?
You didn't say it exists physically, you just said it.
You're playing games. Okay, so now back to our question, yeah? Does God exist?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No.
What do you mean?
Humans' definition of existence.
People,
because
come
the
on.
marker can't be seen in time and space.
Yeah.
God does not exist in time and space.
Okay, so let me say it differently. Does God... Okay, is that better? All right, so I'm using human terms because I'll use God terms. Ready? Yes or no? Okay, you get the point. I'm saying the concept, does God exist? I don't mean, is God a human? I don't mean, is God a frog, or does God in time and space? I mean, is there God?
Yeah.
Right? Is there is in physical. I mean, is there? How do you want me to word it?
In time and space, there's no...
How? So you say it for me. How would we say it?
You do it.
I'm trying, but it's not working. So what would you say? No, I'm serious. What would you say? I'm not busting your chops. Do you have a better way of saying it? I'd love to hear it. So for argument's sake, let's just use...
Our capacity doesn't exist, is what I mean.
So then in our capacity it doesn't exist, then we have no capacity of knowing that he exists, right?
We can understand that it's more than we can...
So if I understand what you mean by our capacities, you mean in our physical existence, he doesn't exist, right? Okay, yeah, but now, is there God?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that better? Is there God?
Yes.
Yeah. So the reason why there's God right now is because we're talking about it. But if we didn't talk about God, then guess what? God wouldn't be. Now, let me explain what I say, but I first have to take a step back. That's what I mean when I say does God exist. Everybody clear? Yeah? When I say does God exist, I don't mean in our dimension. I mean in the way that we could talk. Yeah? So, does God exist? The answer is yes. What about if I'm not thinking about God and I'm not talking about God? Does he exist?
Yes.
The answer is ultimately yes, but for us, no. Now, what was your name, Woodmere Lenabes? Allie? Now, the way Allie put it is very nice. Allie put it in a way like, my day is different. Does everybody hear that? In other words, if something is in existence or not existence, what would be the ramifications? Well, if there's no ramification of its existence or non-existence, so then it doesn't matter if it exists or doesn't exist, right? But if there is a ramification of one or the other, then it very much matters if he exists or doesn't exist. Now let's go along and understand the concept of just because, and this is a biggie that people, I don't want to get stuck on this, I just want to throw it out there just to point out, just as a side point which happens to be related to this. Just because you don't think something is reality doesn't change its being reality. And just because you think something is reality doesn't it change it being from not reality. Did anyone get what I just said? Yeah, I'll say it in a different way. I want to say it in a way which is going to rock the boat a little. Perception is reality. We've heard that? That is completely false. Perception is your reality, but that's semantics. It's not actually reality. If I perceive something to be a certain way, it doesn't mean it actually is that way. It just means that's my perception of it. Do we get that? Is that clear? So to give an example, which I give all the time. Fire burns things. Yeah?
What about non-flammable things?
Fire burns things that are flammable, right? Everybody get that? Now, what if you don't feel that's true? You don't believe that. And it's not a game of that you have different words, that you think fire means ice, but you actually think fire means fire, and you think paper is paper, and I say fire burns paper. You know what do you want to say?
Your reality is reality.
To you.
To you. Which means...
Are you just repeating what I said and saying it in another way?
No.
Semantics, in other words, but it's not reality. It's your reality. It's not reality. That's called semantics. In other words, perception is the way, let me say it more accurately. Ready? Perception is perception. Perception is not reality. Perception is perception.
I think he's trying to say, whose reality is it? General, encompassing, believed reality?
I'm pointing out what we call the objective reality versus subjective reality, right?
You can't prove that.
Can't prove what?
That the way that you see the world is the way that you see the world. Just because
Is correct to me.
I think therefore I am. So the way that you see the world is the way.
Just because a fellow who decided to say a statement and they made it into a slogan in the bottom of a Snapple cap, that doesn't mean that it's true, right? I think, therefore I am. Okay. Yes, who said that's true? I think I'm a frog, therefore I'm a frog? Yes or no? Well, why no? According to you, yes. And you know, by the way, the answer is yes, according to them. But they're not actually a frog, but to them they are. Do you understand what I mean when I say that? I think, therefore I am. What does that mean? Right? The reality is, yes, for you, you will now live away. You will start hopping and croaking and eating flies and trying to extend your tongue. You'll try doing that, but you are actually not that. Does that make sense what I just said? So that's why perception is your reality, which means it's just perception, but it's not actually reality. A frog is a frog, a human is a human. This is a marker. What if I see this as a car? Is it now a car? In your mind, you will now treat it like a car, but you're wrong. Do we get that? So in other words, a person says, I don't believe there's God. So since I don't believe there's God, therefore there's not God. Just because you don't believe something is, doesn't mean it isn't. And the flip is also true. I believe there's a God, therefore there's a God. Just because you believe there's a God doesn't mean there is one. You get it? Either there is a God or there isn't a God, regardless of how you feel. That's called objective versus subjective. So now when we get into this idea, when I go ahead and I say that we have reality is reality, perception is perception. So now let's take a look. Where was that? How did I get into this? What? No. Well,
Prayer. Repetitive prayer.
Yeah, please.
If you said the same thing at the time of Abraham, you would never have ever believed there's a God, because your objective reality would have been that there's not one God.
Great, and I would have been wrong.
So it's all so you're talking about right now. So tomorrow everything, the objective reality could be different.
Well, the objective reality won't be different. The subjective reality could be different.
If objective reality changed back then, it could change at any time.
Objective reality never changed. It's the way whether you were right or wrong changed. You understand? In other words, now it could be the objective reality will change, meaning that there won't be a God now. In other words, that objectively there isn't, which doesn't make any sense, but that's for another reason. But let's say, you understand? But if right now on the 20th, I guess it was the 19th, the 20th at 11:35, let's say that's the time. Okay, everyone relax. Look, how do you know? Maybe it's 11:35. Okay, the idea is what? It's 11:35. If right now there's a God, in 5 minutes it's another discussion. But right now, is there a God or is there not a God? Either there is a God or there isn't a God. How I feel about it doesn't change anything. When I say it doesn't change anything, I mean it doesn't change reality. Do we understand what just happened? Okay? So essentially, what I'm trying to point out here is that you can't see anything with that marker. Right? So the other thing I'm trying to point out is the idea of like this. Reality is, right? Reality is. The question is, what is reality? You understand?
Do we not affect reality?
Say again, please.
Do human beings have no effect on reality?
Of course we have effect on reality. But we don't have effect on whether reality will be what it is or isn't. Right? We have an impact on, right, if a person's alive and now they're dead, you just change the reality, right? They were alive and now they're dead. Yeah? But the idea is if they're dead, they're dead. You can't change dead to be alive. And then if you do, then it's alive and not dead. You understand what I said? So everything is what it is. That's it. I perceive something to be, it doesn't change. I think, therefore, ribbit, I am. The idea we have is as follows. Reality is reality. Now the question is, and this is what life is, try to figure out what is real in the itty. Right? And that'd be good if it actually meant something. The idea is what is reality? What is the truth? What is objective? Is there objective? Or is there just like everything? Come on, people. I think we all know that there's something called reality. An example of fire I use, because I think we could all agree to that when you put your hand in a fire, your hand will get burned. Right? That makes sense? No, I don't believe it. I don't believe my hand will get burned or burned in a fire. Okay, so put your hand in the fire. It's not going to get burnt. What about Avram Avinu? Okay, I get it. But the point is that it doesn't change. Does everybody see what's happening here, right? So now, is there a God? Now, if I don't know, whatever the words I'm using here, right? But God. So if there's a God regardless of how you feel about it. If there isn't a God, there isn't a God regardless of how you feel about it. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. You can't say there is and there is not a God. Unless you mean now and later. You can't say at the same moment there is and is not a God. That just doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction in terms. Okay, so that being the case, now let's talk about the idea of prayer. Let's talk about the idea of the marker versus God. Does this exist? The answer is it exists. When I put it in my pocket, does it exist? It exists just as much if it's here, if it's not here. However, with God, it's a little bit different. You see, God exists regardless. God's reality. I mean, at least Judaism believes such a thing, and that's I'm coming out. I don't know if you're familiar. For those who just walked in, welcome. This is a Jewish institution, right? So you're like, whoa, whoa, right? Oh, yeah, he's leaving now. Anyway, yeah, it's not. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's like, wrong class. Shoot. Anyway, like this, right? So anyone else, you're welcome to. He's awesome. Anyway, so like this, yeah. God, I'm going to call here. God is reality. God is reality. You didn't put a dash. You don't have to. Now, God is reality. Okay. So now the idea we have is as follows. When I'm not thinking about God, does God exist? In reality, he does exist, but to you, he doesn't exist.
And that's why praying 3 times a day is important for us to keep God a reality within us.
Listen to it.
Why 3?
Beautiful. Why? Oh. So the idea of why 3 I can give you for a lot of reasons, right? In other words, if it would have been 5, I would have said I just come up with other reasons, right? In other words, all right, so why 3 is because we have Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov and the Karbanos, and the reality is Marav is really Rishos, so much gets really just 2. There's the idea of Shachas and Mincha because of the Karbanos we give of morning and afternoon. But I can give you a very simple one, which isn't, I mean, it's not so hard to understand, is that the concept of 3, I'm not even getting with Judaism, I'm not pulling a move on you. 3 is the big number in Judaism. I'm not even doing that, yeah? I'm going straight up. The idea of 3 times a day doing something. It's not unusual, right? We have meals 3 times a day. Well, why 3? Why not 2? That's the way the world is set up in a way. It's not unusual to have morning, afternoon, and night. This is a normal thing that exists in the Bria, right? In creation. Well, why did God set it up that way? I can't tell you. But the reality of what we have right now is that's what it is. You have a beginning, you have a middle, and an end. Why do you have a beginning, middle, and end? Why not a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? That's the way life is. You get it? I don't even have to get Jewish on you to answer that question. Very straightforward. Yeah. Right, okay, you're getting already religious on me, right? It's true, there's such a concept that a person does it. The Gemara says, over Vashana, even 2 times, right? But you said the Chutam HaShulos is a pasuk which says that the 3-pronged rope is not easily broken. In other words, there's something about 3 being very, very strong, right? We also have 2, if I wanted to play a game, we get Tovim Shnayim Min Achad, in which case, okay, but the what we have is still 3 is the number. Okay, so we have this concept, morning, afternoon, and night. Morning, afternoon, and night. We have these ideas, the whole day is split up in such a way that we have our morning, we got to get up now. Our afternoon is like when things are settling down. Night is a whole new world, right? And this is just existence. Therefore, what do we got? We go and we say these things. You know why we daven 3 times a day? The same thing every day, because you forget. We forget. And God's no longer reality to us.
Forget what?
About God. We forget about existence. We forget about what everything's about, and we don't understand what he fully is. Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Vahanora, Kel Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim. Every day we need to learn it and think about it and recognize it, and wow. I was saying, I don't remember where I was when I said this, but we say at the end of prayers, Aleinu. You familiar with the prayer, Aleinu? Is everyone familiar with that prayer? Yeah. Aleinu. Okay, Aleinu was written by who? Anyone know? Just an interesting fact. Written by? What's that? Achan, is that what you said? Achan with a nun at the end? Excellent. That's the second half. Al Kein Nekava Lecha, which is Rosh Tevos, Al Kein Nekava, Ayin, Chaf, Nun, Achan, right? He happens to write the end. Who wrote the first part? Yehoshua. Yehoshua wrote the first part, Achan wrote the second part. Right? Why do I write the second part? Because the battle Ai, that he stole the stuff, and he was Modan. Okay. The idea is what we say Aleinu. When do we say Aleinu? Aleinu Lishabeach. We say at the end of prayer. Ladonakol. Why at the end of prayer? So there's a big discussion about this, whether we do Sfarad or Ashkenaz, right? Ashkenaz say, Sfarad, it's a whole Kabbalistic thing, because when a person goes ahead and they say, Ein Kelukenu, it brings them the Shefa and the Bracha from Olama, the Olama brings it down, and Aleinu's Ma'aseh for it all. If you get that, great. But the Bach says, an interesting idea, it says, why do we say Aleinu at the end of Tefillah? Simple. What is Aleinu? Aleinu, what's Aleinu?
It's our responsibility.
What?
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. Aleinu said, you redeemed yourself from the last comment. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol. It is upon us. It is incumbent upon us l'shabeach, to praise. La'adon hakol l'seis gidula liyotze bereish, to give greatness to the one who created. Shalom Sanu Kigod. And we go through the idea of how great God is and how we have to connect to God, and we have to not fall to idolatry and not get involved in the wrong thing and only bow down to God but not bow down to other things. Everybody with me? Makes sense? Why do we say at the end? Because we're about to go out now. We're about to leave the prayer. We're about to leave the synagogue. And we're about to go out into the fake world, as you would call the real world. We're about to go into the fake world. And we're about to what? And we're going to walk out. We're leaving. I can tell you personally, I don't know what you, maybe some of you, if you feel a little more spiritual, will be able to connect with what I'm going to tell you. I don't know. I just tell you, I got a feeling that when I leave the base connect, when I leave shul in the morning, when I go to shul in the morning, okay, so sometimes it takes me half an hour to open my eyes because it's early. But when I finally am getting into it and I'm praying, I always get this feeling of I really have to take advantage of today. This is what happens when I'm praying. Personal thing, take it or leave it. I have to take advantage. I can't, God, give me X, Y, Z. And I think, why am I asking for these things? For what purpose? I could just waste my life? No, give them to me so I could use them properly, right? In order that I can do the mitzvahs, so I can follow the Torah, I can be a good person, or whatever that means in reference to the of Torah, yeah?
Doesn't it also remind you of who you are? In the sense that we're the priesthood. And it's incumbent upon the priesthood to... Okay, good. I'm a little more selfish than you are, right? In other words, I'm thinking about me. You're thinking about others. Excellent. And God willing, I'll get to you one day. But right now, I'm not up to that yet. Perhaps I will today, yeah? I'm not even saying I do that 3 times a day. Of course you do, but you at least think about that. It's great. I think about me. I'm selfish. And I think about the fact that I have to do the best that I can. Hopefully that's a start, yeah? And when I walk out, I even say it with my mouth. I walk out as soon, I'm like, today's going to be a day. I walk out and I'm like, I'm not in the mood. It's so quick. I don't know if that happens to you. Has anyone ever been inspired to do good? And then a second later, not a day, a second later, it's gone.
Right when Yom Kippur ends.
Right, Yom Kippur is over. And it's whoa. Oh, it's over. I was speaking. I was in Dallas, Texas. Yeehaw, y'all down Dallas, and I was speaking there, and I said an inspirational message, and this guy came over to me afterwards. He said, "I want you to know that was really inspiring," and he was being really sincere. He said that was really inspiring, and I really felt like I want to do what you said. Yeah, but I'm over it. Literally told us right after davening. I spoke in between Shachas and Musaf. After Musaf, after the prayer, he's like, I want, by the Kiddush, right, over Cholent, right? He says, it was really inspiring. Kol HaKavod, it was very impressive how you spoke and what you said, and I really felt like I want to do, and now I got over it. It's so quick.
I feel like there's a difference between men and women, though.
That?
Men get over it. Women, it's intuitive for us to move and create.
Perhaps that's why women don't have to daven 3 times a day and men do.
Huge difference.
Okay? Idea is what? A woman doesn't have an obligation to doing 3 times a day. Women are not chayiv, and many of the mitzvahs men are, right? Why is that? Women are, this is not just to make women feel better because they can't lead the services, right? You understand? Women are more connected than men are. This is an automatic thing. But why is it? Why do you have 5 fingers? You're right, good question, that also. I don't know. I'm just saying, but there's a reality of what's going on. Women have a deeper connection. I don't want to say deeper, but they have they are closer to being able to be connected than men are. Yeah? But still we forget. Still we lose it, in which it's got to remind ourselves. We got to remind ourselves. We got to remind ourselves. We got to remind ourselves. You messed up mincha. Where are you? Okay, we are good. Mariv. Ayeka, where'd you go? We forget about it. And because the fact of what's your name? Joe. J-O-E? You go by Joe?
Yeah.
Stop it. Let me guess what happened. Let me guess. You grew up from, right?
Yeah.
You went to yeshiva.
Yeah.
High schools, Hebrew academies, whatever. Yeah? Now, no one called you Joe then. You got out, you started working. Even before you started working, you got some friends. And you're like, my name's Joe, right? There weren't friends who knew you. It was people who didn't know you. Over time, the ones who did know you started calling you Joe also, and now you're Joe.
It's been Joe for a while.
That's fine, but was that the beginning?
No.
So what was the beginning?
Joe when I was younger.
Ah, no, but that was your family. That was your family. No, I want to call you Michael. Okay, go like this. Yeah. Okay, Joe. Exactly what Joe said. Joe. Exactly what Jojo said. And the idea of because of the fact that God is not in our realm, in our existence, in our physical thing, the very nature of God being esoteric and abstract is what makes it most difficult to connect. Which is, by the way, many of the origins of Christianity started from this. Started from the idea that people had a hard time connecting to something called infinite. How do you connect to infinite? So therefore, let's put something up there that's a finite thing, and we'll say it represents. That thing became now idolatry, and now they go to that. And we in Judaism, we say, we're not settling for less. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean we're going to settle for less. Yeah, it's difficult, but now it's difficult, so therefore I now do idolatry. What are you doing? So it's difficult. Okay, push it some more. Long. Oh yeah, when a person goes and you push it, sing it. When a person goes and does it, you can get to a real point. Okay, push, it's gonna be hard. But because of that, therefore we have to have things that are gonna remind us to keep doing this. Therefore, every day, Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanor, Hakel, you understand the power of God, the might of God, the kindness of God. How incredible, we're God everywhere. And only after we start with that introduction of Shevach, of praise, then we get into God, can I get a what? And we ask him for things, right? Then we have Bakasha. All right, this is a famous system. It's called the PAT system. If anyone saw Saturday Night Live, it's PAT. Anyone know who that was? No? Yeah. Oh, Hashem. Anyway, so what's PAT? PAT is praise, ask, thanks. That's the way that the system is set up. We start by saying, God, you're the greatest. And then we say, God, can I get something? And then we say, Modim. We say, thank you. That's why the Shemona Esrei is set up. It's a normal conversation, people. It's a normal relationship. Anytime you have a relationship with someone, you want to get something from somebody, you don't just go and say, give me something, right? When you're little, you do it. But when you get older, you realize to butter up your parents a little, right? You guys are just so great. And they go, what do you want? You're like, fine, the car. Right? They're like, here you go. Now, when you're younger, you don't even thank them, but then as you get older, you realize thank them also. You're like, thanks. Yeah? That's a normal conversation. Hey, look at that. It's a normal relationship. This is not like some crazy, wild thing. It's a normal relationship, but it needs to be done all the time. That's why we have something known. You come sit with everyone. We have something known as the you must. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's okay. And something you can't say it anymore. I'm sorry, it's long. Right, so the idea is why it's known as the Sheish Mitzvos Tamidos, the 6 constant mitzvos. Right? There's someone by the name. There's a book called the Sefer HaChinuch. You can't say that. There's something called the Sefer HaChinuch. Sefer HaChinuch was written many years ago, and in the Sefer, the Book of Education translates as. It was written by. Excellent. It was anonymous. Very good. And basically goes in there through all the mitzvahs of the Torah. And he says every mitzvah has a time and a place, a person and a situation, right? And saying what's the reason for it, etc. But there are 6 mitzvahs that don't have a time and a place and a person. It applies to everyone, always, everywhere. Known as the 6 constant mitzvahs. What are the 6 constant mitzvahs? Anyone know?
Always yearn for Mashiach.
No, that's good. That's one of the Yud Gimel midos, right? Of that we have to go. The 13 principles of faith. Yeah.
God, don't believe in any others, know He's one, love Him, fear Him.
Bam, you got all of them. And don't go after your eyes in your heart. All right, very good. Every one of them, say them again.
There's a God.
Hold on. There's a God. Next.
Know that He's one.
He's one. Next.
Don't believe in any others.
Okay, idolatry. Yeah, next. Right, no other gods, right? No others. Next.
Love Him.
Love Him.
Fear Him.
Fear Him.
Thank you.
Oh, the eye thing.
Frank Him. And lo sasu achar levav chanechem. Don't go after your hearts and your eyes, right? The he and the eh. I don't want to write it out. Right? Lo sasu achar levav chanechem. Don't go after your hearts and your eyes. You notice every one of these mitzvos that are constant, as opposed to tefillin. Tefillin applies to who? Men. At what age? 13. When? During the day. When not? Shabbos and night. Okay, good. Okay, so that's let's say an example which applies to some people sometimes, right? Then let's talk about nida, right? The laws of a woman's menstrual cycle. Who does that apply to, man or woman? We got that one right. Truth is, it applies to both, right? There are laws that are extended to the man, but it applies particularly to the woman's body. When does it apply? At a time when it applies, right? Etc. Right? A place, what time, what place, etc. Shemitah, the laws of Shemitah. Every 7 years. Good. Where? In the land of Israel. You understand? So, and only certain types of produce. There's a time and a place. These 6 mitzvos apply. Men, women. I was going to say children, but it's not true. Men and women, it applies when, always, where, everywhere. What about the bathroom? Okay, good. But the idea is what? It applies everywhere, men and women. What are these mitzvos? Every one of these mitzvos deal directly with God and God's existence. You have to know there's a God. Know that it's only one God. There are no other gods. You got to love God. You got to fear God. And you have to watch out. Don't get straight after your heart and your eyes, which is what's going to remove you, not remove because it's not a word, but remove you from God. Everybody hear that? Okay, good. We'd have to bli neder with a big B, which you know by now means I'm lying. We're going to we'll go through each one of them and we'll show the distinctions and what each one is coming to tell us. But the idea is we have these 6 constant mitzvos. These mitzvos are coming to do what? Why are these the 6 constant ones that we always be thinking? Because these are the ones that are directly dealing with God, and if we're not thinking about them, we forget about them. People, if you're not in the game, you're not in the game. If you're not in the game, you're not in the game. That's it. This marker exists, doesn't matter. God doesn't exist. We're not the same person. We don't treat people the same way. We're self-centered, whatever it is. When a person goes and looks at tefillah, Rav Volbe's a big rabbi, he said that the only book in Judaism which is deeper than the Siddur is the Chumash. Now, I don't know if you understand the ramification of that statement. In other words, the Chumash, which is the Word of God, is the deepest book that we have. Following that, the next deepest thing we have is the Siddur, is the prayers that we have. They're written by the Anshe Knesset Gadol, by the men of Great Assembly. Every word that's written there packs a punch that can knock you out, baby. Knock you out. We're talking about southpaw, left hook. You don't see it coming. Every word, every letter is said Baruch HaKodesh. Everything was said with divine spirit, which means now a person goes, oh, so then, like, what's the point? Like, if I'm going to pray, I'll just pray my own words, right? I'll just say my own words. You're allowed to do that. Go for it. But you ain't going to pack a punch. You ain't going to pack a punch like the Anshe Knesset Gadol is set up. It's just a matter of understanding what the words mean, though. It's a matter about learning about it. Therefore, we say it. Therefore, we say it over and over. And people, we need to get on the game. What you got?
But don't like words inevitably, try to relate, thoughts and feelings rather than the actual words that we're saying. So if you can come up with your own prayer that packs the same punch, does it really matter?
So I got to give you an example of what I'm talking about to understand it, okay? I'll give you an example. Let's talk about, for example, the first word in Shemona Esrei. Okay, the first word in Shemona is the word Baruch. The root of Baruch is Bet Reishim Chaf, okay? Now, Baruch means what? Don't say it if you heard it from me, but if you haven't heard it from me, you're welcome to say it. What does the word Jojo, what does Baruch mean? Bless, okay? So we say Baruch Atah Hashem, Baruch means bless. And it's true, the word means bless. So I'm also going to say the word bless and the feeling behind it, the kinds of a blessing, right? That's good. But let's go a little bit deeper. Look at the numerical value. Take a look, just forget the word bless. What's the numerical value of bless? I don't know, right? I'll tell you some interesting thing though. This has nothing to do with anything, because maybe there is one. What is the numerical value of God? G is what? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7. What is O? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. 15. What's D? 4. What's that equal? 26.
No way.
Anybody get that? What's 26? Numerical value of God's name in Hebrew, Yud K Vav K. Okay, anyway, this is a nice stick. Point is, what's the numerical value of bless? I have no idea. We can figure it out one day. But what's the Barech? The letter Bet is what's the numerical value? 2. What about Reish? 200. What about Chaf? 20. You notice that each one comes in doubles. You see that? Why is it coming in doubles? Because that's what blessing is. Blessing comes in abundance. plus it comes in doubles. If you switch around the letters, it spells out the word Bechor. What is Bechor? Bechor is a firstborn. What does he get? A double inheritance. If you switch around this way, it spells out the word Rechev. What does Rechev mean? Car. It has nothing to do with this. Now, besides the word Barech, who here speaks Hebrew? Who's Israeli? Any Israelis? You're Israeli? What's your name?
David.
No, what's your name really?
David.
David? David. Okay, now, David. I'm not even pulling a Rabbi Burger on you like, what's a Jewish name? I don't care. I want to know really what your name is, right? Okay, David. David, what does this spell? Nobody say it, please. Read this word for me. What does it say?
Barech, Baruch.
Well, there's no Baruch, there's no Vav, right? So what? Barech. Give me another way of reading it.
Barach.
Barach, good. Give me another way.
Berech.
I'll give you a hint. Segol. You know what a segol is?
I forgot that in second grade.
That's a segol.
Okay.
Two of them together. No, what does it say?
Berech.
Berech. What's a berech?
Ni.
A knee. Your knee. The word, which means bless, is the same letters for knee. What do we do in the Shmona Esrei when we say the word Baruch? We bend. At where? At the knee. Interesting. So you notice what we're saying so far. Now let's go further. What does Brecha mean?
Cool.
In modern Hebrew, it means a swimming pool. It also means a spring. What is Baruch coming from? The same root of Brecha. What's a Brecha? A wellspring. When we say the word Baruch, Baruch Atah Hashem doesn't mean blessed are you God. That's why we don't like tefillah. Although it means that also, it also means God, you are the source of everything. Do you get it? Now, you can say in your own words, you're going to have to say 15 words to say the same one in one word. That's what I mean. Can't you say the idea is? Yeah. But if you take a look, the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, when the men of Great Assembly established Shemona Esrei, they went through every word is action-packed. That's why, although it's true.
Know what it is.
Give me 1 second, I'll explain you, I'll answer in a second. That's why, although it's true, a person's allowed to pray in any language that they understand. I'm not talking about now in terms of spontaneous prayer. That you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. But in terms of fixed prayer in the morning, prayer in the evening, you could pray the text in any language you understand. But it's preferable to do it in Lashon HaKodesh. Why? Because of the pact, the action pact. Now, you say, what if? What if you don't understand what if you don't understand what you're saying? So the answer is, in reference to Shemona Esrei, in order to fulfill your obligation, you have to have a basic understanding of at least the first bracha of the Shemona Esrei. However, even if you have no understanding of the rest of them, you still fulfill your obligation. You should have if it's better to, and it packs the punch in the world. It has an impact in the world just saying the words themselves. You understand? Kills me. I tell you, it kills me, Chava, what they did to you. If someone takes medicine, but they don't understand what the medicine does it mean the medicine doesn't have an impact? Why is it intrinsically connected, understanding and doing? Well, that's different. Why is it different? It's only different because you live in a physical world and we've left any concept of ruchnius, of spirituality. In the world of ruchnius, in the world of the neshama, actions have huge ramifications. Yes, it's true. I'm so sorry. I'm not really sorry. It's an expression. The idea when we go and we say the concept, when we just do anything, it changes the world. In a way, it's true. We pass the mitzvah sichas kavana. But even first of all, there are man da'amrim that say not like that. You have to understand what I'm saying. I'm even yoding what I'm going to say, right? But excuse me. Even though we pass the mitzvah sichas kavana, if you didn't have kavana, there's still many times in your yod say, as long as it's not an anti-kavana, you have a basic understanding of what's going on. Just saying the words affect worlds. But I don't get it. You're right. The more you understand it, the deeper you'll connect, the more of an impact it will have, the more power you have. But when Harry Potter says, the room disappears. He doesn't know what he just said, but he did what it said to do, and all of a sudden it impacts the whole thing. Well, that's made up. Yeah, you know where they made it up from? Torah. These things are so impactful. Okay, so not to leave everyone hanging, but just to bring everything together now, right? Understand, the question was, we started with, why do we pray every day the same thing 3 times a day? Like, what are we doing? Answer is because this exists, it doesn't exist, it does. It's still there, it doesn't make a difference. Does God exist? Well, reality says, I think before ribbit, but the idea is understanding, is that yeah, of course it makes a difference when a person goes ahead and they understand, they don't understand certain things, but when reality is reality regardless of what you think about it. But with God, if you don't think about God, He's not going to exist in your reality, even though He still does, and therefore your day is going to be different. We say Aleinu, bam, the next second, at least me, I walk outside and I'm not thinking about Kohanim being a priest of the nations, right? One day, right? It's good to have a baby. But the idea is what? Now I'm thinking the concept of recognize just myself. I start to feel a lack of Kedusha as soon as I leave the base measures. As soon as I leave the base Knesset, I feel a lack of spirituality. And I start to lose. Maybe I'm lacking in that way because I should see spirituality in the whole world. But the reality is I don't. In which case, it's that quick. You never got to remind yourself, Mincha, maybe Ma'ariv also, a woman a little stronger. Okay, I only have to do two of them. The idea of people, why we do these things every day. Number one, live in the moment. Start understanding what you're actually saying. Number two is even without the concept of living in the moment, the idea is understanding that every single day we have to be able to remind ourselves of these things. We don't remind ourselves of them, we're going to forget them, we're going to fall off track. We're going to stop doing it. All of a sudden, how do we even know there's a God anyway? This is the steps that I find every religious kid that leaves Judaism does. They stop doing things and then they go, how do I even know anyway? It says, come on, baloney, you know. No, I don't. I really don't, Joe. I really don't. It says, yes, you do. No! I hate you, Mom and Rebbe. And it's just like, relax. Let's just take a step back, take it easy, take a breath, put the cigarette down, and the other thing as well, and let's just relax and start to recognize the fact that, hey, people, reality is reality. If we want to be able to connect to reality, we have to be constantly pushing it because of the esoteric nature.
So proper prayer is like spiritual medicine.
Oh, are you kidding me? Spiritual medicine is proper prayer. That's like a nice thing. Yeah, yes. Okay, people, it's been a pleasure. I got to bust out of here. I'll see you on the. Take care. Bye-bye.